It is March of the year 1778 in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and a ragtag group of soldiers run training exercises. Some of the soldiers don't even have shoes and cover their feet with cloths. However, at the front of these soldiers leading the training is a man dressed in a full formal military uniform, speaking German, shouting for the men to fix their bayonets and perform a mock charge. This man was the Baron Freidrich Wilhelm Von Steuben, and he had come to America for a second chance, and for glory. Von Steuben was born in 1730 in the town of Magdeburg in modern Germany, to a Prussian military family. He accompanied his father during the 1744 siege of Prague. There, he observed his father directing Prussian siege engineers. Von Steuben enlisted in the Prussian army between the ages of 16 and 17. He served in the army for 17 years, fighting in the 7 Years' War, being wounded twice, once at the Battle of Prague, and then again at the Battle of Kunersdorf. Von Steuben was dismissed from the Prussian army, following a reduction in the army after the war in 1763. In 1764, von Steuben became Hofmarschall, an administrative position in German princely courts, to first Joseph Friedrich Wilhelm of Hohenzollern-Hechingen, which he held until 1777. He began to use the title Baron in 1771. That same year, he went to Paris with the prince, where he was introduced to Benjamin Franklin in 1777. When Baron von Steuben's friend who introduced the two, French Minister of War Claude Louis, Comte de Saint-Germain, offered von Steuben's assistance in the ongoing American Revolution, seeing the value in an experienced Prussian officer, Franklin was unable to offer a paid position due to a wariness of foreign mercenaries in the Continental Congress. Von Steuben would have to go as a volunteer and present himself before the Continental Congress. Baron von Steuben left these meetings disgusted at the prospect and returned home to Prussia. Upon his return, von Steuben found himself under allegations of homosexuality, which would result in his persecution and loss of status in rigid Prussian society. Despite the allegations never being proven, von Steuben knew they would ruin his chances of attaining a higher rank. Under threat of prosecution for his alleged homosexuality, von Steuben decided to flee his homeland, bound for Paris. Franklin had likely heard the rumors and knew of the reason von Steuben accepted an offer he so recently refused, but he did not think that what von Steuben did in private was relevant to his qualification in military service. On September 26, 1777, the exiled Baron von Steuben left Europe via the French port city of Marseille, bound for America. Von Steuben rode into Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, at the tail end of a long and harsh winter, to find a camp in tatters. George Washington, commander of the Continental Army, knew of the allegations against von Steuben, but welcomed him and assigned Alexander Hamilton and John Lawrence to be his aides. Washington wrote on the Baron, "He appears to be much of a gentleman, and as far as I have had the opportunity of judging, a man of military knowledge and acquainted with the world." The soldiers seemed to feel similarly, with one writing, "The Baron was of the fabled god of war. He seemed to me the personification of Mars. The trappings of his horse, the enormous holsters of his pistols, his large size, and his strikingly martial aspect, all seemed to favor the idea." Von Steuben was appalled by the conditions in the camp and that the soldiers had been fighting under, and immediately set to work drilling them using strict Prussian techniques. However, he also had fun, throwing wild and lavish parties with his soldiers. The Baron also formed relationships with other men. Two particular men he had a romantic relationship with were William North and Benjamin Walker, who he lived with for 2 years in camp. Meanwhile, Baron von Steuben established standards of sanitation and camp layouts the U.S. Army would use over a century and a half later, where there had previously been no regulations. On May 5, 1778, on General Washington's recommendation, von Steuben became Inspector General of the Continental Army. General von Steuben picked 120 men from the army to form an honor guard for Washington, using them to demonstrate his training to the rest of the men. Von Steuben's eccentric personality enhanced his mystique to the soldiers. He trained the soldiers in a full Prussian military uniform, while most of the soldiers were wearing rags. Von Steuben could only speak a little bit of English, so his notes were often translated by one of his aides to French, then to English by one of Washington's aides. Von Steuben taught the Continental Army how to do bayonet charges and used them for melee combat. This tactic proved effective at many battles, notably at the Battle of Monmouth. During the winter of 1778 to 79, von Steuben wrote regulations for the order and discipline of the troops of the United States, commonly known as the Blue Book, based on the training plan he designed at Valley Forge. It was used by the U.S. Army until 1814 and affected American drills and tactics up to the Mexican-American War. In 1780, von Steuben sat at the court-martial of British spy Major John Andre, who was captured after the defection of General Benedict Arnold. Afterward, he fought alongside General Nathanael Greene in a campaign in Virginia. However, von Steuben was forced to take a sick leave, returning in time for the final campaign at Yorktown, where General von Steuben led one of Washington's 3 divisions during the battle. After the war, von Steuben helped design a defense plan for the new nation he helped create. He was discharged from the military with honor on March 24, 1784, where he was also made a U.S. citizen. He became a prominent member of New York's German community and died on November 28, 1794. The Baron Freidrich Wilhelm von Steuben was the creator of America's drilling and military camp structure, and he was gay, which makes me think it's ironic that the U.S. military has such controversy allowing gay soldiers today, when the guy who literally wrote the Blue Book on American military tactics was gay. Thanks for watching.